Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV, where we believe that everyone has the potential to be a giant in their own world. And today, sit on back because we're going to learn how to have an unstoppable mindset. Buckle up.
Maybe video will go up.
Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. Couple of little technical glitches here in the morning. Never hurt anybody. It never stopped us because, well, we have an unstoppable mindset. So, boom. Hey, if you have not gone to giantsandsmalls.com, there you can see everything that we're doing. So we've got a calendar. We've got the monthly newsletter. We've got there's so much information if you want to learn everything that we're doing. We've got the tortoise's hair that we're running. We've got uh, look, all the tabs that are across there. It's amazing. So
All
you
the
can check
tab.
out all the tab. You can check out every single tab inside and out. Oh, that's awesome. We are running our I was going to say a Kickstarter campaign. This is an Indiegogo, but it's crowdfunding for the Tortoise's Hair, which is Nicholas T. Smith's second book. He is also the author of The Giants and the Smalls, and this is about Frankie the tortoise that's born with no hair in a land where tortoises had hair, and she goes out on a discovery journey to try to find her hair, but then realizes she's pretty damn special just the way she is. So we feel like that this message needs to get out to the world. So you can go to that and support if it calls to you. We would sure appreciate it.
We got 10
You can
days
also,
left, right?
yeah, now we better hurry.
Better hurry.
They gave us like double the time than last time, and we were all excited. We got like 60% funded right out the gate, and then we
Yeah.
were just kind of like, dude, we went tortoise mode again.
60% of the time, it works every time.
Yes, and then on the website too, you can look. There's a link to sign up for the SG interest group. We're going to be starting that soon as well. That is our 8-week program for the 12 journeys. I am Ryan Morris. I'm the co-creator of Wake Up with Giants TV and A Tribe of Giants. And this is Nicholas T. Smith, the author of The Giants and the Smalls, who's going to introduce our show today.
Yeah, we got a great guest today. We're joined by Dan Blanchard. Dan's a true inspiration. He's a best-selling author, speaker, educator, and TV host who's been featured on over 100 TV and radio shows and several of the world's top 10 podcasts. So he's a two-time Junior Olympian wrestler and coach, and he's completed 14 years of college and earned 7 degrees. That's a lot, man.
It sure is. I just got the bug and I couldn't stop. I was never a good student. I was never a good student to college.
Yeah.
After I took some of my sports and army habits into college, and then all of a sudden I got good at school, and I just kept going.
Oh, man. Well, we're going to keep going with your bio here. You're doing amazing. He's a special education teacher and teacher consultant, and he's making a positive impact in the lives of his students and in the future of education. So his commitment to education reform has earned him recognition from the American Federation of Teachers, and Dan's passion for helping others is infectious, and his message of hope and perseverance resonates with audiences everywhere. So join us as we dive deeper into his inspiring life and message. Dan, welcome to the show.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me on the show this morning. And I know that we're waking up with giants and that we're unstoppable. And that bio you just gave was super. But, sometimes some of the listeners or people in the audience are just like, this guy seems like, he's on a different level. What can I really get from him? And I got to tell your listeners out there, your audience out there, listen, we're all on that level of just stuff happens that messes us up, and we got to persevere. So just for instance, like my, you may think my life is easy, but guess what? It's not. Life isn't easy for anyone. All right. Just this morning, I woke up and I found out that my furnace had burned out of all the oil overnight. So here I am this morning. My wife's yelling at me because she has a cold shower, right? Anybody out there have the wife yell at them for something like that? She's yelling at me because she's got a cold shower. And I'm sitting there trying to bleed the lines today. I don't know much about that. I'm trying to bleed the lines
Oh, we froze.
today. No, I have this show coming out. It's like a race against the clock. And I'm stressed. And I'm freaking sweating, right? It's just like a regular human being, like everybody out there in the audience. I'm going through the same stress and heartaches and fears and insecurities. It's everybody out there. But I'm like, yeah, I got to do this. I got to get this done. And, there it is, unstoppable, right? I got to get this done. And right before the show started, guess what? It fixed. It fixed. I fixed it. It fixed itself. I fixed it. Whatever. But it's unstoppable. I mean, life is just so messy.
That's what I tell my wife too. When stuff just magically fixes itself, I'm like, yeah, I fixed it.
Yeah.
I got that.
Yeah, as I was saying, life is so messy, and it so rarely goes the way we want it to go. So, like, your message here about being like unstoppable and persevering and just keep going is so important. And I wish the story just stopped there, but it didn't. You know what I'm saying? So I pop out my phone because my laptop computer is old, right? Just like a lot of other people, right? Kind of got an old laptop. So I pop out my new phone. That's more modern technology. So I'm playing with that. And I know exactly where the email is on my laptop computer. But as I'm scrolling through my phone, the message is clumped and it's buried. And I'm looking all over for it. And I could not find that link. And I'm starting to, like every other human being out there, right? Starting to sweat. My heart's pounding. My hands are freaking shaking a little bit. And I'm like, where is that email? That it's buried somewhere with that link. And I'm flipping through emails. And I'm seeing all sorts of links to other stuff, right? And then I just ran downstairs and jumped on my laptop, even though it's old. And even though it may pause every once in a while. But then again,
I just pictured an abacus. Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And we can't just throw in the towel when things are not going our way. You know what I'm saying? We have to be unstoppable. We have to persevere. We have to take the hits and keep going, even though it looks bad or we look bad. We have to keep going.
I'm going to guide you in here, man. I'm going to guide you into a flow if that works. Because I know Dan's like a fire hose. If we unleash that hose, it's going to go all over. So what we want to do is kind of guide through your journey of becoming a giant and some of the things you've gone through and look at your philosophies, and you'll get some time to really share your view of the world. And that's our hope here, is that people find inspiration in your story. We can all relate to those mornings where you wake up and things just don't go the way you thought. And I kind of want to look at your life. I mean, if we go back in time to your journey and look at where you thought you were somebody, you thought you were something, or life was supposed to go a certain way and you were automated within that, and you had an awakening that maybe there's something better or something more for Dan. Can you recall where that might have been?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I grew up in a very, very dysfunctional home. We're like, everything seemed to go wrong. Everything was bad. Nothing was good. We were like almost like the outcast. My father was a hard drinking, hard hitting Marine, and he had mental health issues he was dealing with, and he was drinking all the time and self-medicating and knocking around me and my brother and my mom and all that. And where things started to go right for me, I mean, I didn't do well in school. I was a little runt. I couldn't do much. I didn't know anything. I was just so it felt like incapable, like kind of like a loser. But where things started going right for me was when I started lifting weights and started getting into sports, and then I just started getting all sorts of success in sports. And I thought that was the key to life, was sports and being able to out bench press everybody. I broke the Connecticut bench press record and all that stuff. I was an Army push-up champ when I got in there. So I was certain that I had found the key, to life. All you got to do is be able to run really fast, be really strong, be able to fight good. That's the key to life. And then I found out there's way, way more stuff beyond just being able to jump high or lift weights or being able to wrestle or play football. We were football state champs too, and I was a big part of that team. So that's where things got really confusing to me, because I thought I found a way out of the trap or the hole or the not good enough. And when I got out of that world and got onto my own as a young adult and had to start dealing with college, and I was like nothing but a C student, in high school, and start dealing with the work world, and I was getting kind of knocked around the work world. That's when I was like, wow, this life is so much more complicated than just being able to wrestle or play football or bench press, So now I had to like start over, and now relearn, not relearn, but I had to borrow the habits that made me successful elsewhere and transfer them into areas I never thought about transferring them into.
Yeah,
like college and like the work world.
Let's talk about that. So borrowing the habits, I like that idea and that concept. I have a version of it going on in my mind right here, but clarify what you mean by that, borrowing habits. What do you mean?
The borrowing the habits. So I got to figure, again, I had nothing. I was a nobody. And then all of a sudden I was a somebody, after years of persevering in sports, not giving up. Well, guess what? That works in the work world and college world also. Don't give up because things go bad. Like I didn't give up this morning, right? When things were bad, right? Getting there early, right? I remember lifting weights every single day. I would never miss. And I'm shocked today at how many of my students miss days of school. How many people at work miss days of work. You know what I'm saying? So I follow that habit of like the weight room. Like I would never, ever, ever miss a workout in the weight room. And it's the same thing. I never missed a day of school. When I got to college, I never missed a day of work. So those are the habits: the getting there early, the persevering, the never missing a day. Being consistent, right? And how about this one? Giving it your all. I learned that in the wrestling mat. I learned that in the weight room, the football field, right? And how many people at college or the work world are just kind of just going through the motions?
Yeah.
They're not giving it their all, and they're living this mediocre life and wondering why, they never seem to get anywhere. I mean, life is hard. I give everything I have in many days, and it's usually way, 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 way more than other people. Sometimes I got to go back and do things 2, 3, 4 times to get it right. You know what I'm saying? And I still wonder sometimes why things aren't going my way. And sometimes it still feels like I'm just going through the motions, even though I've got all these awards and accolades. You know what I'm saying? So those
Dan, let me ask you this. So you give it your all. Let's say you give it your all and you're doing all these things, right? You're giving everything you can think of. And the ideal that you have in mind is that it's going to go this way. So I'm going to give it my all. This is where I'm going. This is my intention, my vision, my dream. And it doesn't, right? So you give it your all and it doesn't. So you talk about keep going, but how do you handle the intensity of emotions of frustration, of disappointment, of setbacks, right? You thought it would go a certain way and it didn't. Yeah. Can you talk about that a little bit? How do you handle that, and what's your philosophy around
Absolutely. There's a couple things you can do. One is, you got to take some deep breaths. When you're really frustrated, you got to take those deep breaths. You got to kick out any self-negative talk, because that bombs you. That self-negative talk, it bombards you all day. If your best friend said the things to you that you say to yourself, they wouldn't be your best friend anymore, right? So you got to control. You got to control that self-talk. You got to take those deep breaths, and you got to realize that nothing that's worth anything is done overnight. You can think about Thomas Edison's 10,000 times he failed. No, I just found 10,000 things that didn't work that put me a step closer, to what did work with a fluorescent light bulb, right? And a longer burning inside the light bulb. So you do that stuff, and then here's the thing. I mean, you can't just keep doing the same things over and over and over. Now I know, like I did like some of that stuff in the gym, like the basics, right? The basics, on the wrestling mat, the basics. Yeah, I did that stuff over and over and over. And there's a lot to be said about doing the basics in real life and college and the work world over and over and over. But at some point, you've got to self-educate yourself. Like a madman. You got to self-educate yourself and find what's working for other people. Okay, and it's funny because right now I'm reading a book that just came across my screen that said who, not how. And I'm finding this very interesting. I don't know if you guys read it.
Yeah, I just read that.
Cool. I'm reading it right now, and I found it very interesting, because most of my life I prided myself on just being the guy that just got out there and self-educated himself and just worked harder than everybody else and just figured stuff out, and maybe just had, I don't know, thicker skin or just tougher, even though, I do sometimes feel like I'm getting beat up. But as I'm reading this book, it just made, as I'm reading it right now, I'm not done, it just makes so much sense, is that, we're not going to know how to do everything, obviously. And what I used to always hit that with was, well, you got to know your why before your how. If you do the why, you have the motivation to keep going when things are hard. And then eventually as you move 10 feet forward, you're going to have a different view of what's going on, and you're going to know a little bit more on the how. But this book talks about who. You know what I'm saying? Who. And I've known this for a long time, but I haven't really thought deeply about it until just reading this book of who. Who out there is, who is what they call it. But who out there knows how to do what you want to do. And those are the people you should be tapping for mentors or coworkers or partners or some sort, integrating yourself with them and working with them, because they're going to save you so many headaches, so much heartache, and so much trouble, and so many years of you stubbing your toes and stumbling and falling over stuff and being ready to quit a million times over. Now, until you find that who, well, you got to look for that who. But until you find that who, you got to do a lot of the other things I said about your why, about your deep breathing, about your watching your self-talk, training your brain in positive mental habits and physical habits and doing all those things. Because in the end, like I said before, just kind of recap real quick, nobody accomplishes anything that's really big or worthwhile without taking a lot of beatings, a lot of failures on the way. You got to be able to weather that stuff and try to find somebody to help you get through that stuff a little bit smoother.
Yeah, Charles Darwin said it's not the most intelligent or the most or the strongest that survive. It's the most adaptable to change. And if we look at what you're talking about here, when you're navigating the unknown, so you're creating something you've never created before, it is easy to get into the routine and habit of what you've always done. But in order to grow, you've got to grow in ways you've never grown before. And part of that is looking for people who are doing what you need to do. So you talk about borrowing habits, but also borrowing mindsets or borrowing skill sets that other people have that you don't have. We're working on a movie right now, and we were introduced to somebody that found us through a post that we did that that has the connections we don't have, that has the knowledge around movies and gaming and other things that we don't have. And she's partnered with us. We have Laura Lund, who's powerful at setting up groups. Same thing. She's out there doing things that we don't know how to do. Marketing, it's like all these things we don't know how to do. It's not about us having to know it all. It's about who do we know that knows the things that we want to know, right?
Oh, absolutely. And Charles Darwin is a great example of that. And myself, I'm a special ed teacher and a history teacher. I can go back to like the dinosaurs. Pretty much the dinosaurs are pretty much all the animals out there were bigger, stronger, faster, bigger claws, bigger teeth, bigger, all that stuff than humans.
Yeah.
But yet humans are the ones that survived. Humans are the ones that were, I guess, more adaptable. Humans were the ones that lived collectively, in these villages and these tribes, what I'm saying? These events like these towns. And that kind of goes right to what you were saying about helping each other out through that. And it looks like my screen may be acting up a little bit.
Well, it's because your message is so powerful. It's affecting the energy. So it's good, man. We'll run with it.
They have filters like that on TikTok and Instagram, so it's just for us, it's just a normal filter.
Yeah, right. Just another day.
Yeah, it's all good.
Well, while he reconnects here, just this idea, Ryan, of the adaptability. We've gone through it where we just don't know how to do certain things, and to reach out and let people know, look, we don't know what we're doing when it comes to this. I mean, you've talked about that a few times as we've met with people. What's your view on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's I relate it to the show Gold Rush and Parker Schnovel. And if you watch season 1 of that with Todd Hoffman thinks he's this big badass dude that's done construction all these years. And across the way is this 16-year-old Parker Schnovel,
right,
who, in his eyes doesn't know what he's doing, like anything about the world, but he definitely knows about how to get gold. And so eventually it gets bad enough that Todd has to walk across the river and talk to Parker Schnovel. And so, what I always tell people is don't be a Todd Hoffman, in the beginning. Just go talk to those people that know what you don't know. It'll save you so much time and energy, and you'll find friends, you'll find a tribe, you'll find people that are willing to step in and support and guide you as you're, like learning and growing, and you'll still stumble.
Yeah.
I mean, that stuff just happens in life. And, but that's how you learn and grow.
Remember in my book, The Art of Accomplishment, I talked about the guy with the Rubik's Cube that he wanted to figure out how to solve it on his own. And it took him 23 years to figure it out. 23 years.
Yeah.
And in that time, he lost his job. He lost his marriage, like all these things. He was so committed to this, but it was in a time of YouTube and books and all these things where I think the quickest time now is like 7 seconds or something, or 3.4 seconds, something ridiculous, right?
We'll have to fact check that.
Yeah, we'll fact check.
But it's less time than it was. Yeah.
It's a lot less than 23 years, right? Instead of going to figure it out.
There's guys I watch that like juggle the Rubik. They'll juggle and they'll solve it one click at a time as they're juggling, and they've got it down in just a minute or two, and it's insane. Or they'll do it behind their back. Like, I mean, I can barely like walk and chew bubble gum at the same time.
Dan, are you there? We'll see if Dan's back here. See, he is unstoppable. He keeps persisting. So this ties into the message here.
Here's the thing that I like too about Dan is like, and there's a lot of people that can relate to feeling like they need to do it on their own, because that's what we're taught. You go to school, you get good grades, you go to college, you get good grades so you can get a good job and then rise to the top on your own merits. And although that, for some that can work, and that's okay. I'm not like saying that, hey, that's the terrible path. What the mentality is though is it's all on me, that I have to do everything, or you get stuck in that that same path, to and from, and you never stop to look up. There might be something different. You might have goals and dreams that you want to accomplish. You feel like it's all on you. There he is.
We can hear you.
Hey, can you hear me?
We can hear you. This will work, man.
Can you see me?
Nope.
No, but you can hear me.
You look like a beautiful circle on our screen, but it's perfect.
All right, so maybe I just go with that.
It'll be like talking to the Wizard of Oz.
To see if we get the picture, but
right. Dan Blanchard, the Wizard of Oz,
behind the curtain.
Hey, and I was listening to your conversation the whole time.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I was yelling over to my daughter, "Hey, can you help me? Can you help me?" And she came running over here. Right? Like, try this, try that. So it kind of fits into exactly what you guys were talking about.
Well, and the unstoppable mindset, because we are used to setbacks, and there he goes again, but we're used to setbacks, right? Like things happen in the world, that life isn't going to go exactly as planned.
Yep.
But you just keep going, right? And like what just happened here is a beautiful demonstration of life, right? You have an idea. This is going to be amazing. It's going to go this way. I do it every show. I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. Best show we've ever done. And it always is. And you never know what curveballs is going to throw at you.
Dan, you followed the script perfectly. So thanks for following this.
This was all planned out.
Well, I'm glad I could give like a living example of what you guys talk about every single day. Beyond just a theoretical theory, you got to do this, you got to do that. Here I am. I'm just, I'm showing you guys as well as showing everybody out there in the audience that things rarely go perfect. Guys like you guys make it look like it's easy, make it look like it's something that, like we're in a different league where things just kind of go easy for us, but they don't go easy for us. I think that's what a lot of people forget. Like you look at Michael Jordan, everything went easy for Michael Jordan, right? Wrong answer. He didn't make his high school basketball team.
Right.
He got cut. So there's hope for everybody.
Yeah. Think about Einstein. Einstein, when he was young, was an insurance salesman, and he failed miserably at insurance sales. So anybody measuring him, I think he made the quote that if you measured a fish's intelligence by its ability to climb a tree, then it wouldn't be seen as very intelligent.
It would be awkward to watch.
So if you measured Einstein's intelligence by his ability to sell insurance, he was horrible. And
although Nick, sometimes we may have looked like fish climbing a tree.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's why when things go like they do, you just you learn to flow with it, right?
But it creates it real quick, and then you can go, Dan. Hang on to that. It was just like it increases your capacity and ability as you struggle through things. And you also, when you have the humility to turn, and in the book, it's Rit looking up, and then looking at a different way of a possibility of somebody knowing something that he doesn't know, which is, how can I become a giant?
Mm.
I don't know how, right? He doesn't have an idea of how to do it,
Mhm.
but he's like, well, I guess these giants would probably know how to be giants. So naturally, I'll go ask him. It's that Parker Schnovel, Todd Hoffman thing, right? Finally,
Yeah.
eventually looks up and goes, oh, they've always been there. Parker Schnovel was always on the other side of the creek,
Right.
but
Right.
until it got hard, or he just got tired of being tired, or whatever it was, and he looked up and realized, hey, I need some extra help. But
That
then he went
picture
and learned. Yeah, yeah.
on that side,
Here.
one of the
Oh, this.
sides, right?
It's one of those sides.
Start
There you go.
dancing
You can't
here.
get wrong.
But then what happens is, once you have that humility to go ask, like a mentor, like a Dan Blanchard or a Nick Smith or whoever, and you go and
Or
you
Ryan
talk to that.
Morris. Yeah.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. But you go and you ask those questions and learn a little bit more, and then struggle through and then work through it. Your capacity grows. Well, that's exactly what happened with Rid. He went home and guess what? He grew a little bit. In fact, he grew to where he didn't fit in his bed, and his house was
Right.
wrecked.
His
You
old
know,
life, right? He didn't
yeah,
fit into his old life
yeah,
anymore.
it changed him.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, Dan. Go back to. Do you remember where you were at?
Yes, I do. I was going to say something about Einstein and then the courage, which fits right into
Yes.
what you're saying. So with the Einstein, the other thing with Einstein is that in some of his classes, he didn't do that well. But those were the classes that he didn't see as relevant to where he was trying to go in his life. So some
Yeah.
people laugh and say, oh, look, he didn't even get good grades in the high school or whatever. And it was like, but look at the area he was interested in. If you
He's
look at
going
that,
through
he
the
did
work.
very well.
He's
did
like,
very
this
well.
is stupid. I don't even, this is like so out of date. And then he
Yeah.
comes in with the theory of relativity, right? He's like,
Exactly.
here,
Yep.
let's try this on.
Good thing you didn't take home ec, and
Einstein gets a D in home ec. Who
Yeah.
cares? Right? Who cares? But I do believe that courage is a muscle, which I think falls nicely in step with what you were saying about right there, like looking up, I'm out, and I don't know how to do this. But I do believe courage is a muscle where that muscle can grow with use. Just like in the gym when you're curling the dumbbells for your biceps, right? And the biceps grow with use. Courage is the same thing. And I remember reading, I don't know if it was a blog or a magazine or whatever it was. I was reading something, and there were like 10 people in there that were just super successful, right? And as I'm reading through this, there was a theme that stepped out at me. And I was like, wow, pretty much every one of them said this in one way or another. But this is pretty much what they said. If I could go back and do it all over. And I'm like, yes, tell me, please tell me. What is it, right? Like, if I could go back and do it all over.
Dan, get to it.
Yeah. They're like, I would have been bolder sooner. I'm saying bolder sooner, braver sooner, right? You grow that courage muscle, right? You bump into new opportunities. When you climb up 10 more feet, there's a different view there where you can look around and you see things a little bit different, right? There's some new people there that you can befriend and talk to and learn some things from. And to me, that's how you become unstoppable. You just keep going and keep finding new ways to do things and new people to meet.
There's a part in my book right here where he climbs the giant. I don't know if you can see that, right?
Yep.
I'm not very good at aiming here, but go back and look at it. But you're talking about courage here, and there's a part I put in here of, he had these fearful thoughts, and we all do. We all have some form of that. But he mustered up the small amount of courage and trusting that he was making the right choice. He shook off his fearful thoughts and moved on. He stepped into it. And I think that's part of the unstoppable mindset that you're talking about here is you're going to have intense emotions come up through life, stresses, fears, doubts, despair, insecurities. They're going to come up. But how do you navigate and move through life while those are present, right? Courage, I think, is part of that, is taking whatever's going on within you and still stepping forward into the unknown. Do you have a view on that or take on that?
Oh, I absolutely do. Again, I'm going to put that right back to like a muscle. If you don't use it, it atrophies, right?
Yeah, okay.
If you do use it, it grows stronger. So if we just throw that around, bounce that around inside of our heads when we're feeling like I'm not so sure if I want to do this, right? You do that. I know your courage grows like that muscle as well. I think I've read something from Heather Monahan. I listen to her podcast. Sometimes I've read a couple of her books. She's pretty popular out there. Talks a little bit about how, the red light means go.
Yeah.
Right? Red means go. Don't let the fair. Fair's
like
means go and all that
Yep.
stuff. Most people see fair as that red light saying stop. But she's like, no, fair means go, right? Red light now, just go. And it was funny because I was just talking to someone just yesterday. We were just having this conversation about fair, and it was just so relevant to what we're saying right now, where it was like, here's the thing. If you just jump out at it, jump in with both feet, just do something, anything, even if it's just pick up the phone and making a phone call. If you just do the littlest thing, instead of just being frozen there in your shoes, you just do the littlest thing and start going at that fair. You see that fair starts getting smaller and starts dissipating, and starts going away if you go at it. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of us say it like Heather Monahan said in a different way, but it's the same sort of thing. You just do like a little something, and the fair, that big monster gets smaller.
We just created a program this week called Dream Slicing. And it's where you take your big visions and you slice them down into manageable chunks, right? So you still have vision, but you create micro visions within that vision. So they're still leading you to the grand vision. But a lot of times we get so overwhelmed by the thought of creating something big, or we get into our fear mindset and we shut down, right? Or we run away from it. And it's really not anything to run away from. So the goal of visioning and getting into those dreams is to create hope and excitement. And sometimes it's so big that we can't even do that. We just don't see ourselves as the ones creating it yet. So what we do is we chunk it down into dream slices where that dream is still there, but it's a sliver of it, right? I can manage a sliver of it. It's kind of like the Brian Tracy's book, Eat the Frog, right?
Yep.
Yeah, or these small steps like Sic Parvis Magna, where it's, small steps create giant outcomes. So that I love what you're saying here is because when you bring it down to small steps, everybody can take a small step, right? We always say that giants are still taking small steps. They're just bigger, right?
You're bigger, and we're trying to stand on the shoulders of giants, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love how I'm not familiar with the dream slicing as I haven't heard it before.
Well, we just made it up this week. So
it clicked. As soon as you said it, I was like, wow. I'm like, that's impactful. The dream slicing. Because as something I throw around in my head every now and then is, Dr. James, the father of modern psychology, says, like 90% of the worst things that have ever happened to me have only happened in my head. They didn't happen in the real world.
That's it right there, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, like you come up with these great ideas or these grand visions, and then it's like, oh, but this, and it's all played out in your head before it even happens. And a lot, I would say most, because I do believe it's most people shut that down, where they go back to their past. They say, well, you can't do it because of this.
Yes.
And so with dream slicing, we can help them still have that grand vision of becoming this giant. But we're going to do the Todd Hoffman Parker novel, and we're going to break it down, and we're going to show you step by step how to gold mine, how to get it to your dream and your vision.
Well, anytime we start something new, a new skill set, I mean, in my book, The Art of Accomplishment, I say to my clients, you've got to be willing to suck at something long enough to get good at it. And most of us won't allow ourselves to do that. And part of that is stepping in a little bit at a time, like dip your toe in. There's a concept called titration, right? When it comes to healing trauma and chemistry, it's introducing things in small amounts. Because if you put a ton of chemical in and it blows up on you, then you probably won't want to do it again, right?
Probably not.
So when you titrate it and you do small degrees, it's a lot easier to manage, right? You can see the effects and adjust from there. So that's what we're creating.
Yeah, and I think that's a method for helping you not to sabotage yourself.
Yeah.
Because we do it. We all do it, and we all do it all the time. We sabotage ourselves. And especially if we're not like being cognizant of these little tricks like this titration, like, not beating yourself up,
Yeah.
doing a little bit at a time, the dream slice. And, we're not being actively cognizant of that stuff and actively doing that stuff. We definitely sabotage our stuff. And I love the part you said about doing it terrible at first.
Yeah.
I've written now, I'm writing my 38th book. And I got to tell you, I went through life saying I'm terrible at writing. I still say that. And I still say that. That's the reaction they always get. Everybody laughs. The radio personalities laugh. The TV personalities laugh. Everybody laughs when I say that I'm terrible at writing. But the problem is, I am terrible at writing. But I've learned like a trick that I share with others, and it's this, and I hate to sound trite here if it sounds trite, but it's this. I always say, you hear it in school, right? The sloppy copy. You got to be willing to do the sloppy copy first. It's all right, and it's really rewriting. So, you got to be willing. If you want to write a book or you want to write a blog, you want to write anything, you got to be willing to do it sloppy, to do it bad, to do it terrible, to do it crappy. You got to be willing to do it crappy at first. And then if you want to write a book, guess what? You just entered the club if you're willing to keep going.
Yeah.
Because that's like the price, the cover charge to get in the door, is to write the crappy first chapter or the crappy first few pages or even the crappy book. You write that, then now all of a sudden your cover charge is paid. You're in the club now, right? And now here's where the real writing becomes, which is the rewriting and then getting help from others, bringing in your who's, your editors and whatever else, bringing in people like, can you refresh my memory? What really did happen that day? Can you tell me what really happened that day? Because this is the way I see it. So this is the advice I give people all the time when they're trying to write books. But then again, we can transfer that advice to something else, transfer those habits to something else and say, get out there and be willing to do it crappy at first, and then you'll do it better after. I remember like my first keynote speech, there was like a little trick I was going to do, and I needed a microphone that you wear in your head, like the headset, because I needed my hands free to do this little physical trick. And it was my first keynote speech that I was doing for the National Honor Society with a whole bunch of kids, probably smarter than me, what I'm saying? So they give me the headset and I put it on and I'm like, oh no, I need to turn my head this certain way so I can't have the thing hitting my mouth. So I put it on the other side of my head, and the mic, instead of curling in toward my mouth, curled out toward my out. And then half of the time I had people saying, we can't hear you. And I'm sitting there trying to yell to the audience. Right? And I'm thinking, gosh, I must have looked stupid. I must have been crappy. That was a crappy first performance, right? But now I've done like 100 speeches plus, since then. I got a TEDx talk happening.
Alina says, what? I can't hear you. She's kidding.
Yeah. So there it is, right? If I didn't do it crappy that first time and didn't give my courage muscle a little bit of a workout, that first time, and then get over it, right? When it was done, I was like, that didn't go the way I wanted it. I just got to get over that and get back in the ring. Teddy Roosevelt says, the man in the arena, right? Get back in the ring.
Yeah, beautiful. Like the idea of satisficing, right? Nobel Prize winner Herbert Simon came up with the phrase satisficing, which means to satisfy the need, and it's sufficient for the task. And it's basically a concept of good enough, and it'll outperform optimization every time. And people think of perfection. They want to write their book, but they want to do it perfectly. But like what you're saying is the moment you finish that book, you're in the club, right? The word perfection comes from the Latin perficere, which means to perform and to complete. So truthfully, that word going back to its origins means that when you do something and you finish it, you're doing it perfectly by definition, right?
Yes.
And satisficing means any effort that's good enough is better than anything that would be optimized in the long run.
I've had to do that a lot in my life where I had to say good is better than not done. Right? It's done. And the funny thing is, lots of times when I'm like, gosh, this isn't perfect. Gosh, people are going to criticize it. When I have found many times that people didn't like criticize it or me so much. Some did, but some didn't. What some did was offered me advice. And when I thought something was done, I could, if I really, really wanted to, I could always go back and redo it. I could always read a second edition. That book, no, that book is done. Yes, it's done. Don't let great be the enemy of good, right? It's good. It's done. It's out there. Over the years, I've gotten some comments on it, some advice on it. And then guess what? I go back and read a second edition. It's even better. And it puts my name and face out there in front of people again, which is kind of cool. So it was like a blessing. It was like a blessing, but I would have never gotten that constructive criticism if I had said, all right, I'm not going to put this out there because it's not perfect.
And I this concept of the unstoppable mind. And when we look at what we do what are called 12 journeys. And the first 6 journeys, I hold up 3 fingers. The first 6 journeys are
3 fingers twice.
Yeah. So I'm not mathing here, but 3 fingers twice. The first 6 journeys are all on the inner work, the mindset, right? What's going on in here? Because you could have the best program in the world, the best skills, everything. But if your mindset's off, it doesn't matter. It's like a flashlight with dead batteries. It's just useless, right? So we dive into the mindset because people aren't aware of their non-conscious behaviors that are playing out, that are habituated and automated, that are kind of getting in the way of them growing the way they'd like to grow. But when they do wake up to them, they're really hard on themselves and they're really down on themselves. Like you said earlier, like, would you keep a friend that talked to you the way you talk to you? They talk to themselves that way over the stuff that they've automated. And all we're trying to do here when you wake up to your automations is just to shift them. Who cares what they are? They are what they are. To get curious about them and compassionate about them, and then navigate through the difficult emotions that might come up and get back at it. You call it a blessing when people give you feedback. Somebody else might hear that feedback and take it as self-judgment, right? And really ruminate and spiral downward. What would you say to somebody that maybe gets that feedback and they're getting stuck in that space of self-judgment and insecurity and, doubt and despair? How would you advise them?
Wow, that's a good question and not an easy one to answer because I think every one of us fall into that trap of, today my skin is just not particularly thick. Like today I'm vulnerable, right? Today my feathers are being ruffled, right? And then hopefully you don't fall into that trap for more than a day. I mean, I've heard people say, you're having a really bad day, things are going really bad, and I think girls are better at this than the guys because girls are maybe a little more in touch with their emotions and a little more vulnerable. You hear women tell women, give yourself a good cry, and then put it behind you.
Us guys, we usually don't have a good cry. Well, this guy
do that.
I cry a lot. But
We
most guys do not.
Yeah, we cry inside, right? But we don't let that good cry go out like the ladies do. So the ladies have the advantage on us over there. Me, when I'm like really, really frustrated, what I'll do, I'll do something like I'll go for like a jog or bike ride, or I'll do something physical because I'm like upset, I'm angry, and I need to get kind of back in a good place. And for me, maybe exercise is puts me in a good place. So I'd ride my bike or I'd run or I would do something, even walking if I go for a walk. And then what I do is I like to visualize as I'm going out. Visualize, I'll go back to times in my life, even as far back as like high school or middle school, when I sunk that winning shot for the basketball game, right? I'll go back and I'll just start visualizing and just start thinking about, times in my life when I was successful and trying to be cognizant of all the work I had to put in to sink that winning shot in basketball, to get that touchdown saving tackle in football, to pin that returning state champ in wrestling, right? And I have to, and you go through that, you remind yourself of all the work you had to put in to do that and all the ups and downs you had going through that. But you know what? If you could succeed before, you can succeed again. And if this is what you're really supposed to be doing, right?
Yeah.
What you're really supposed to be doing, you will. You'll keep going at it. You'll have the ups and downs and you'll succeed. And if it's something that you don't have a lot of control over, like, I'm interviewing for that job over there 2 towns over, and I'm trying to get that job. And, maybe you don't have a lot of control of that and you keep getting rejected. I heard somebody say, listen, rejection is God's protection. You weren't supposed to get that job, right? There's another town, 2 towns the other way, that have a similar job that's going to be better for you than this job, right? So or this
I
particular
like that
company's job.
perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
like
rejection
you
is
can shift how you see rejection, right?
Right. Yeah.
exactly. And then the other thing is, lots of us sometimes get like frustrated because we see people doing things or saying things where it looks like they're not like agreeing with us, like they're disagreeing with us, or they think we're inept or they're being disrespectful. And a buddy of mine the other day said, I was talking to him about sometimes I give speeches and you get somebody who's just like not even looking at you. And it's like, well, what's going on here with this guy? They don't like my speech. And it's like, no, that's not necessarily what's happening, right? Maybe they're glancing down at their phone and they're texting a friend saying, you got to get down here and watch this guy. So hear this guy talk. Maybe that's what they're doing, right? Or maybe their spouse just called them and they were in a car accident or something. Like, you don't know why somebody's acting the way to you, the way they're acting to you. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
brush it off, have thick skin. Don't let your feathers get ruffled, and keep going at it. And if that's the thing you're supposed to do, you will succeed. And if that's the thing you're not supposed to do, you'll figure it out. You'll figure it out, and
You'll adjust, right?
Yeah, you'll redirect yourself, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's part of going with the flow, and the acknowledgement that you put into this, the acknowledgement of not just the present, what's good in the present, but what was good in the past. What have you done in the past that's positive? Because it'll elevate your mood. Just remembering, oh yeah, I did that. I did this. You mentioned the Honor Society. I got on the Honor Society with my master's degree. I graduated with honors and a 3.96 GPA. I thought that was pretty good. But to go back and remember that, I don't do that very often. In the show, I'm reminded of it, but to be able to sit down and acknowledge, hey, I've done some really good things in my life. And it's okay for me to sit here and acknowledge those because it's going to elevate my mood so I can see a brighter future.
Yeah.
It's going back to the, like, what's true, like we talked about with Byron Katie, and it pulls you back into the space where you can get your head back and then start seeing what's possible again. Because I think when you're in that, there can be shut down. There's the stories that you talked about, Dan, right? That you start it's like sliding back downhill when you start thinking about the stories of the judgments and that we talk about in our 12 journeys. But once you can see what's really true, give yourself some grace, you can start to see vision again for the future.
Yeah. I know years ago when I was going through a rough time, I sat down and I created a big visual timeline. Like, I went through fifth grade, what happened in fifth grade, right? Sixth grade, what happened in sixth grade, right? Seventh, and then I created like this timeline of positive things that happened in my life during that time. While leaving out the really terrible things, but there may be something that's said about that. I mean, I only did the positive things. And when I went back, I hung this thing up in my bedroom on the wall. So every single day I could see the positive things I did. And, and it helped get me through this negative time. And I didn't do the negative things. But now that I'm thinking about this, maybe it would be good to include some of the negative things or bad things that happened in your life. Just as long as you include right next to it, I got beyond this. I learned from this or whatever, so that you can realize whatever bad time you're in right now, it's actually a learning thing, is what you're in right now. If you look at it that way and don't look at the other way.
There's a lot of learning and unlearning at the same time. So I talked to my sister the other day and she'll have wins and successes, and she's meeting with a therapist right now that's doing EMDR. And so they'll go through and do EMDR with the successes to anchor them in. So they'll sit and anchor in that win as programming, right? But often we'll brush past our successes. I don't know if it's a societal thing or a cultural thing where we kind of minimize ourselves so we can fit in societally. But truthfully, it's one of those things that we need to acknowledge the good we've done in the world. We need to acknowledge ourselves for what we've accomplished and what we've overcome. Because while we're unlearning, we also need to anchor in what we're learning. And if we minimize it, it might be hard to anchor that in. We might not remember it. Right?
Yeah. And we won't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're absolutely correct. I mean, it's kind of funny, over this last 2 years, from that timeline that I created, a whole bunch of people have been pushing me for like a decade, including my wife, to write a memoir. So I was able to use that timeline Of course, I included the negative things too in my memoir, but it took that timeline to like the next level. Now, I'm not telling everybody to go out there and write your memoir, but perhaps you open up a journal. Maybe you do create the timeline, and maybe you do create like a journal, or maybe you do create, maybe it might be draft only purposes of your own memoir, so that you can flip back on that and find the good times and the bad times, and realize, you know what, I am very capable. I am very capable, and what I'm doing is worthwhile.
Man, I like this. I think this is so useful to be able to look at all of these ways to create that unstoppable mindset that you just don't quit, that you don't relent when it comes to your dreams, visions, goals, and you just kind of flow and trust the process, that every step that you take, whether you think it's accurate or not, is the right step. Like the rejection is protection view, I could see so many times where things didn't go the way I thought they should, and it was the right thing. It's like that song, Thank God for Unanswered Prayers, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Dorothy Inez, who's on right there, I mean, she's one that has stepped and stepped and stepped, and she created something amazing where she can do Reiki and other energy healing for her clients. And it I look back at her journey of where she started, and there were a lot of unsurety or insecurities around the future of what's going to happen next, but she kept stepping relentlessly, powerfully, and she created something amazing by being willing to do those small things and not give up. Right?
Yeah, no doubt. I'm glad you're bringing that up about the stepping, because in my life, this has happened so many times to me, is that I've tried something, and in my head, I'm like, like a normal person should be able to get this right, and I'll get it wrong. And I'll be like, oh, dang. All right, I'm just, maybe I'm not as smart as like the common guy. Well, I'll get it right the second time, right? And I tried the second time, I get it wrong. I get it wrong the third, fourth, fifth time. And I'm thinking, this is ridiculous. Like a normal person shouldn't have to do something 6 times or 7 times to get it right. But on the 7th or 8th or 9th time, I'm thinking, all right, I got it right. Like, good, look at this. I finally started my own podcast show, or whatever it might be. I finally wrote my first successful speech, my first book, or I finally learned how to fill out that resume, what I'm saying, or that application, or whatever it might be. But I'm like, the normal person shouldn't have to do it 6, 7 times to get it right. But then I look around and something interesting happens. Like I look around and I see, yeah, there are some people out there that, let's say, do the same thing and get it. It looks like maybe they get it right on the first time or second time, right? But then you see there's a whole bunch that don't, right? And then they don't do it like the 3rd time or the 4th time or the 5th time. And then they sit there and look at me and like, dude, like, how do you have your own show or something like that, right? It's just like, how do you do that? Like, you must be really special to have that. And you're like, dude, you're probably more special than me. You probably would have gotten it right on the 4th time when it took me the 7th time, right? But the thing is, they just didn't persevere. They either just didn't try, or they gave up after the second one.
Yeah, there's research that actually shows people with natural talent way underperform people in the long run who persist and are relentless, right? That have grit.
That mindset.
And yeah, it's like they didn't have to work hard to develop it. And so just like us, though, they have the chance to really work hard to develop that grit and anchor it in, right?
Yeah, and that growth mindset versus that set mindset. Like, I'm really smart, I'll do this, and if I get it wrong, then there must be something wrong with it, so I'm not going to do it, or whatever. And then, then you get that growth mindset of, you just keep trying, and eventually I get it.
Yeah.
And then that kind of like separates you from the pack, and I may knock myself around a little bit while saying, I can't believe this took me 7 tries to get this. But guess what? I got it. And most others don't.
Right. Yeah. I love the Joe Pesci. You do sound a little like Joe Pesci. I like it, man.
Cool.
Question for you, as we get toward the end here, I can't believe this is already here, is legacy. When we look at that word legacy, it comes from legatia, which means a gift by will. Steve Chandler, when we had him on the show, had an amazing comment that legacy isn't something he'll leave when he's dead. He said, I work every day to leave that legacy while I'm alive. Right. And as you
Yes.
look at what you're doing, Dan, with your vision of the impact you'd like to make in this world, what would be your gift to the world with what you're doing? Why are you doing it?
Oh, it's interesting. It kind of reminds me of the dash between the dates. And
Hmm.
someone said, I can't remember who said it, but somebody said it back several years ago. On your gravestone, the dash between the dates. And I got to tell you, like I think back, what do people say about me now? What are
Hmm.
people going to say about me in the past, in the future? What do they say about me in the past? And what are they going to say at my funeral, right? And I think about this stuff, and I'm like, you know what? Whether I want people to, in the past, present, future, and at my funeral, to say, here's a good guy
Hmm.
that did a lot of good in the world. And there's a real quick funny story that was just dropped in my lap by a buddy of mine who's super successful, makes a ton of money. We were recently just at a high school high school reunion, a bunch of years, I'm going to say over 30, right? And he told me, I didn't even know this, but he came to me and he said, hey, Dan, he goes, some of our old female classmates came to me and said, hey, we're trying to figure out who is the most successful person in our class. And he's like, who's it between? And they go, well, it's between you and Dan Blanchard, And he looked at them and he said, hey, listen, ladies, please do not confuse a big paycheck with what's really important in this world. He goes, what Dan Blanchard's doing out there with our youth and with all people of all ages that are just struggling to get through life, because what he does out there, that inspiration he gives them to aspire to something better, is so much more important than what I do and just making a big paycheck. And he's like, so if you need a name, he goes, it's Dan Blanchard. He's the guy, right? And that's what I've always tried in my life. I've always just tried to help people have some faith in themselves and a better world.
Yeah, you're doing that with kids. You're doing that in the world. It's that is the impact, because that'll carry on way beyond your time here, right? Way beyond the dash.
Oh, absolutely. And I look back now, so many of my former students or kids that I've met in different places have gone on to become like coaches, teachers, church leaders, mentors. It's like, there it is, the next generation. Beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's cool. Anything else you wanted to share today that maybe we didn't touch on that you feel would be important?
Yeah, I would say every one of us undersells ourselves, and every one of us are capable of making a big impact in the world. And it doesn't have to be like huge circles. It could be just the tiny circles that you travel every day. I'm saying? Every one of us can make those tiny circles, or whatever size circles we travel every day, better places. If we just stop thinking about, ourselves and poor me, and just think about others and how to make the world a better place, and think good things happen.
Things happen. I love that. Ryan, how about you?
Man, as I hear you, Dan, talk about, like your living legacy, and that you hope that people will say, here's a good guy that did a lot of good. I was sitting here thinking I've only known you for about 58 minutes. And I'll tell you what, you're not a good guy. You're a great guy, and that you're doing a lot of good. You've done a lot of good, and you're going to continue to do a lot of good. And I'm so grateful that your message came through, even though we had to do it a little bit of a different way, right? It was that unstoppable mindset. It was, we're going to do this no matter what. We're going to figure it out one way or another. The message of Dan Blanchard is getting through, and it got through today. And I'm so grateful that you were able to spend the time here with us today, and just to be Dan Blanchard. You're a pretty dang good guy. You're not Joe Pesci, even though you might sound a little Joe Pesci-ish on the other
Joe
side.
sounds like him, right?
Yeah, I imagine Joe's probably a good guy. You're a great guy.
Yeah.
So thank you for being a great guy.
I appreciate that. And I guess all three of us had set a very good example today of being unstoppable.
Yeah, I like that. Things are going to happen in life. They happen to all of us. Even when you feel like you're reaching your dreams to a degree and you're having these milestones, right? There will always be a point that you feel like there's more, or there's something just beyond your grasp that you want to reach for, you want to intend for. And the idea here is to keep going, to be relentless, to be unstoppable, like Dan teaches, and just keep going for it. You can't see the next step. I think Steve Jobs said you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only do that looking backward. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect. That's kind of what you're talking about here, is that idea that you don't know what's next, but you do know who you can count on. And that's you in any situation, with any person, with any event, right? And so that's the power that each of us have or has. When we do the X, we just mean that you're where you are, you're where you're supposed to be, or doing what you need to be doing. It's more of a symbol of surrender. It's that your next step is the right step. Where you are is the right place to be right now. Trust it, right? Lean into it. And
Absolutely.
so, Dan, we're honored to have you on here as a gift. You know, we do our Stretch Revolution program. It's a 12-week program. We'd love to gift that to you if that's okay after this show. So if you'll hang tight for a minute, we'll get you set up on that.
Cool.
But it's just a way to stay inspired on a daily basis and to really kind of learn what we do, but also apply it to whatever you're doing and help you in your legacy and your dream. So we appreciate you being on with us.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. For those that are watching, thanks for being a part of the show. We love your comments. You keep those coming every time. So we'll be back next week with another great guest. In the meantime, share this with somebody you feel would benefit from this particular message. Somebody that you know in the last little bit has said something that they would be impacted by this message by Dan. Share this on social media. Follow us on YouTube. If you're not doing that yet, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can see when we go live every single dang time. Right, Ryan Morris? Every single dang time. Guys, thank you. We'll see you in the next episode. Go make it a giant day.